20s further north. We will see temperatures a little lower during Tuesday. Through Tuesday evening, again, a bit more cloud, perhaps across parts of the south, maybe the odd spot of rain, a few showers in the far northwest, but for most it stays fine and dry. But this line of cloud across parts of the south early on Wednesday, that is a weather front, and that's introducing slightly cooler air for Wednesday. Again, most places dry with plenty of sunshine, but temperatures won't be as high. We're still looking at very warm conditions, mid to high 20s across the south, low 20s further north. That's more typical for the time of year, but not quite as high, certainly in the south, as these current couple of days. That cold front is the reason why it pushes away the heat, but as high pressure builds back in, we could see the heat building once more during this weekend, particularly so across the south.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Very good afternoon and welcome to the Briefing PM, an hour of the latest political news, debate and analysis here on GB News. And my word, there is only one story in town. I'm Darren McCaffrey and here's what's coming up over the next hour. 11 MPs have now declared that they intend to stand to be the next Conservative leader and, in effect, the next Prime Minister of the UK to replace Boris Johnson. The race to get MPs on board with their campaigns has begun, with the first round of voting set to take place later this week. It comes as Sajid Javid, the former Health Secretary and Chancellor, is one of those contenders. He wants to slash cooperation tax and scrap the controversial national insurance rise. He's launching his campaign a little later this hour, and we're bringing you that live. Plus, we'll have the very latest on this Conservative leadership race. It is certainly hotting up. As always, get in touch with your views. Who are you backing? Who do you want to see as the next Conservative leader? GB Views at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet me at GB News. All that and so much more between now and 4. But first, at the top of the hour, let's cross to Rosie for the very latest news.
Good afternoon. It's just a minute past 3. I'm Rosie Wright, keeping you up to date. Boris Johnson says he's determined to use his final few weeks to deliver the mandate he was elected on. Speaking in his first public appearance since resigning as Conservative Party leader, he refused to endorse any of the 11 candidates running to replace him. The Foreign Secretary Liz Truss is the latest senior cabinet minister to add her name to the list. The Prime Minister says throwing his weight behind a candidate could actually damage their chances.
My job is really just to oversee the process for the next few weeks, and I'm sure that the outcome will be good. and we just need to get on. And as I said, I think before to you, the more we focus on the people, on the people who elect us, on their jobs, their hopes, what they can get out of investment in science and technology. The more we talk about the future that we're trying to build, the less we talk about politics at Westminster, the generally happier we will all be.
Conservative MP Robert Jenrick told GB News he's backing the former Chancellor Rishi Sunak.
Personally, I think it's best to focus on what that individual can really offer the country. And as I say, I think Rishi is the person of the greatest ability. He's an incredible hard worker. He's someone who has achieved enormous things already for the country. Front and centre will be the economy. And so choose the most economically literate person and the person that the public trust the most to deliver for them.
A timetable for the Tory leadership contest is expected to be drawn up this week once the new executive has been voted into the 1922 committee. The influential group of Conservative backbenchers will then finalise the rules of the contest. It could include changes to the limit of the number of candidates who can run. They're also looking at the rules governing a no-confidence vote. That's something the Labour Party is pushing for in order to attempt to immediately remove Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. Sir Keir Starmer has accused the candidates running to lead the Conservative Party of desperately trying to launder its integrity. In a speech in Newcastle, the Labour leader said Britain's dealing with a crumbling economy and deserves better. He also hit out at what he called the hypocrisy of those who served in the Prime Minister's government, saying they supported tax hikes despite being opposed to them all along.
Well, what we've seen this weekend from all the Tory candidates who want to be leader of their party is £200 billion of unfunded spending commitments. And my challenge to them is say precisely where that money is coming from. Is it going to be cut? If so, what's going to be cut? Because we need to know. Is it going to be borrowing? If so, where are you borrowing from? How much are you borrowing? Or is it just the magic money tree?
A 15-year-old boy has been sentenced to life for the murder of schoolgirl Ava White. The teenager must serve a minimum of 13 years for the fatal stabbing of the 12-year-old in Liverpool last November. The defendant, who's not been named, claimed he accidentally stabbed Ava in self-defence, but a jury convicted him of murder following a 2-week trial. Ex-Formula One boss Bernie Ecclestone is to be charged with fraud by false representation. HMRC investigators say they believe they found more than £400 million worth of assets overseas that he failed to declare. The case will have its first hearing on the 22nd of August. The president of Sri Lanka is going to resign after protesters stormed the capital over the weekend, demanding political reform. Tens of thousands of protesters bombarded the official homes of both the president and the prime minister in Colombo on Saturday, in the wake of an economic crisis in the country. The prime minister's office says the president would step down on Wednesday, with the prime minister adding he'd also resign to allow an all-party government to take over. Heathrow Airport has ordered today airlines to cancel more than 60 flights that were scheduled because it couldn't handle the expected number of passengers. A spokesperson for the airport says it's expecting Terminals 3 and 5 to be busier than usual. They're warning holidaymakers they could cancel more flights this summer. Tens of thousands of people have already been affected by flight delays and cancellations over the past few months. This is GB News. I'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's head back to the briefing with Darren.
Very good afternoon and welcome to the programme. It is 6 minutes past 3 o'clock on this Monday afternoon. We're on TV, online and indeed on your wireless radio. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. While the race to replace Boris Johnson is well and truly underway, with 11 candidates so far having declared they are running, including Rishi Sunak, the former Chancellor, Penny Bordens, who is currently a Trade Minister, Tom Tugendhat, who's the Chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, former Education Secretary and now Chancellor of the Exchequer Nadhim Zahawi, former Local Government Minister Kemi Badenoch, former Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt, the Attorney General Suella Braverman, former Health Secretary Sajid Javid, Transport Secretary Grant Shapps and Junior Foreign Office Minister, as of last week, Raymond Christie. And we still are waiting potentially to hear whether Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, and indeed Jacob Rees-Mogg may also throw the hats into the ring. They've got until tomorrow. Earlier, the Prime Minister, the current one, Boris Johnson, was speaking. It's the first time since he announced he was going to step down. And here's what he had to say.
Today, we're trying to get over the point that the long-term future for this country is in science and technology. That is what is going to drive jobs and growth for decades to come. So the government's putting £40 billion into R&D, scientific R&D, over the next 3 years, biggest ever investment. And we're putting £1 billion here in the incredible Crick Institute in London. But I want to stress the investment's going all around the country. But what we want to see is UK companies more than matching that. And at the moment, we underperform by. I mean, we have the best scientists, we have the best universities, we have more breakthroughs, we have more fantastic scientific papers, peer-reviewed papers. But unfortunately, we don't often get the commercial progress that we would like by those companies. So what we want to see is companies putting more of their own cash into R&D. So we're doing a huge amount, government's doing a huge amount, but for the UK to lengthen its lead as a science superpower, we need the companies to do more. You're right. You know, I'm doing the last few days, weeks, or however long it is, but the job of government has got to be carried on in that period. I've set out for people what the Tory, the parliamentary party have decided. That has the inevitable consequences that it has. But my job, just in the next few days and weeks, is to continue with the programme on which we were elected, which included making sure that the UK was restored to its status as a science superpower. The country that split the atom, invented the MRI, you name it, it all happened here. But we don't make enough money out of it. What I want to see is these types of breakthroughs happening not just in London, Oxford, Cambridge, but that's fantastic and they must, but around the country. And that is starting to happen. Look, I don't want to say any more about all that. There's a contest underway and that must happen, and you know, I wouldn't want to damage anybody's chances by offering my support. I just have to get on. I have to get on, and in the last few days and weeks, the job of the constitutional function of the Prime Minister in this situation is to discharge the mandate, to continue to discharge the mandate, and that's what I'm doing. And I think, and the reason we're here today is because I think, I think science, technology, our natural genius in this area is one of the many, many things that is going to carry us forward and make sure that our future is very bright. I know that whatever happens, and you know, whoever takes over, there is a great agenda to be continued, and that we've put in some pretty fantastic investments, not just in science, but in infrastructure, in skills, and in technology that I think are going to enable us Conservatives, I should say, to keep on with our programme of levelling up and delivering for all the people of this country. That's what we're going to do. But I'm determined to get on and deliver the mandate that was given to us. But my job is really just to oversee the process the next few weeks, and I'm sure that the outcome will be good. And we just need to get on. And as I said, I think before to you, the more we focus on the people, on the people who elect us, on their jobs, their hopes, what they can get out of investment in science and technology. The more we talk about the future that we're trying to build, the less we talk about politics at Westminster, the generally happier we will all be.
That was the Prime Minister speaking a little bit earlier on in London. But frankly, as with politics, power very quickly and attention drains, doesn't it? when someone steps down, as the Prime Minister is, to who is going to take over. Well, one of those candidates is Kemi Badenoch. She's the former Treasury, Equalities and Local Government Minister, who has got the backing of Michael Gove, among others. And someone else who is backing her on the campaign is Gareth Bacon. He is the MP for Orpington. And delighted to say Gareth joins us down the line now from Westminster. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. A very sunny Westminster this afternoon, like most of the country. Gareth, why are you backing Kemi? Why has she got your votes?
Well, Kemi is somebody that I've known for a number of years. We sat on the London Assembly together some years ago. She's advanced rapidly here in Parliament. The reason I'm primarily voting for her, I think she's got a really fresh perspective on things. She really understands what she believes and why she believes it. And she is completely fearless in terms of expressing her views. And I think she throws a fresh light on this election, and I think she's a really good candidate for this election.
And she's got the backing of Michael Gove and others. There's been much talk, though, about what she's standing on. She says she wants to set us free by telling people the truth. What does that mean?
Well, I think there's a terrible temptation to believe that the government should do absolutely everything, should get in the way and make your mind up for you. She's not prepared to do that. She wants government to slim down what it does, do fewer things but do them better, and tell them the truth about these things. And I think that is a fresh approach that is very much a necessary one and a welcome one.
In saying that, many people will point out that she served as a minister, but she's never been in cabinet. It is a big step up, isn't it, to go not just as leader of the Conservative Party, but directly into being Prime Minister. Are you confident, she's got the political nous, the experience to do that?
Well, Kemi is actually, this has been said a lot, but Kemi actually she's 2 years older than David Cameron was when he took over as leader of the Conservative Party. She's been in 4 different ministerial positions. She's got experience across Whitehall, and she's attracting support across the parliamentary party. She's also very popular with the general public, or the party membership. So I think Kemi actually has an awful lot to offer. And I think she has a freshness as well, which perhaps one or two of the other candidates perhaps don't have. And I think she has a lot to add.
And there's lots of talk about kind of the culture wars, and Kemi's been asked about this in the past. Are you comfortable with some of the positions that she's taken in regards to trans issues and such like?
Well, Kemi takes the view that trans people have to be respected, but people born with a penis are men, and that single-sex spaces need to be respected, and women's rights need to be respected. And I think that is something that you have to value. And quite honestly, I think the way that Kemi faces these things and the honesty with which she pursues them, I think says an awful lot for her, because some of the debate around these things are very, very toxic, and Kemi doesn't bow away from that.
Are you comfortable, though, with how the race in many ways is playing out at the moment? I mean, we've seen kind of lots of rumours and suggestions and skullduggery effectively in the papers, haven't we, against some of the other candidates? Seems that maybe some of number 10 have been briefing against Rishi Sunak. Is your fear that this actually could become a very, very divisive election for the Conservative Party?
Well, elections by their very nature in any democracy will involve a certain amount of debate. But the problem is, what we shouldn't do is start personally attacking each other. Because at the end of the day, somebody is going to win this election, and it's vital that the Conservative Party then unite behind that person for the good of the country. So I think personal briefing is against other candidates is something that I don't want to see in this election. I think honest debate is a good thing. That's healthy in any democracy, but personal attacks on people really is not something we should be doing.
There is a chap who is shouting in the background, as you say, one of the joys of living in a democracy. He is calling, though, obviously for the Conservatives to be out. That is his view, but he's also calling for a general election. The Labour Party also calling for a general election. Is it fair again to change Prime Minister with only a very small minority of people getting to decide who all of our new Prime Minister is going to be?
Well, constitutionally, what's actually happening is that the Conservative Party is changing its leader. The Queen will send for... But people forget that Boris Johnson has not resigned as Prime Minister. He has resigned as leader of the Conservative Party. So what will then happen is that the Queen will send for the leader of the largest party who can command a majority in the House of Commons and ask them to form a government. Now, constitutionally, that's perfectly proper. Winston Churchill was not appointed with a general election. He wasn't even leader of the Conservative Party, actually, when he became Prime Minister. He became Conservative leader sometime after he became Prime Minister. So we're following a well-established constitutional convention.
OK, Gareth, because of that, that protester in the background, we're going to leave it there. But thank you for persevering through that. Much appreciated. As you said, the joys of living in a democracy. Everyone's entitled to their views. Gareth, thank you very much indeed. That's Gareth Bacon there joining us, the MP for Orpington, who's backing Kemi Badenoch for leader of the party. Though at the moment, it must be said that those out in the lead, Rishi Sunak has got the backing of the majority, or sorry, most MPs at the moment, well short of majority. Penny Mordaunt also has the backing of more than 20 MPs. While others have yet to decide the race, but have got public backing, including the Home Secretary, Priti Patel. She's got until tomorrow to declare whether she will enter the race or not, and there's much rumours about Jacob Rees-Mogg as well. Fascinatingly, we are going to hear from Sir Graham Brady. He is the chair of the 1922 committee, because at this stage of the process, it is that committee, the governing body of the Conservative Party, that are in charge of this election process. He, at around 5 o'clock, so in less than 2 hours' time, is going to set out the agenda for the election over the next 10 days or so. The idea is that we could see MPs starting to vote in round one from as early as Wednesday of this week, maybe a second round on Thursday. Other suggestions that the third and fourth rounds could come on Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. The idea having that you will have two final candidates in place by next Thursday. That is the day in which Parliament goes into recess. Then that process leaves the parliamentary system, leaves the 1922 committee. It gets handed over to the Conservative Party, who then run the campaign between the two final candidates, when the Conservative membership, the 100,000 plus Conservative members, get to decide who ultimately wins this contest. Also, fascinatingly, we're going to find out what potentially the entry is when it comes to the number of MPs that these candidates need in order to get into the first round. At the moment, it is at 8. Some of those MPs haven't got the backing of 8 MPs, but it could be as high as 20, which could exclude quite a few of the first round candidates. So we'll have to wait and hear from Sir Graham Brady a little later on in the programme. OK, it's 18 minutes past 3. We're going to pause there on GB News. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, we're going to be going live to Sajid Javid, the former Health Secretary, the man in many ways who started the recent bout of resignations. He is launching his campaign. We'll be bringing you that live. But first, let's bring you up to date with the weather. And my word, it's a scorcher this week. Here's the details from the Met Office.
Alex Deakin here with your latest weather updates. Hot and sunny to start the week. Temperatures won't be as high through the middle of the week. However, there is the potential for temperatures to rise even further come the weekend. High pressure is dominating at the moment. It's bringing plenty of sunshine today, but this weather front is going to bring a change for some of us in the next 24 hours. Certainly the cloud increasing across northwest Scotland, a bit of rain edging in here through the evening and the breeze picking up. For most, it is a very warm summer's evening, and it's going to be a very warm night, a difficult night for sleeping. We will see this rain just spreading more widely across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, but temperatures widely holding up in the mid to high teens in parts of eastern England, may not drop below 20 Celsius, so a very warm start to Tuesday. Will be a very different day through western Scotland, through the central belt, thick cloud, a little bit of rain here and there, and some of that rain for Northern Ireland too. For most of England and Wales, well, maybe a bit more cloud than today, thickening up at times, but generally lots of hot, hazy sunshine. Temperatures may be a degree or so lower, but still into the low 30s across the southeast, widely into the mid-20s. Further north, we will see temperatures a little lower during Tuesday. Through Tuesday evening, again, a bit more cloud, perhaps across parts of the south, maybe the odd spot of rain, a few showers in the far northwest, but for most it stays fine and dry. But this line of cloud across parts of the south early on Wednesday, that is a weather front, and that's introducing slightly cooler air for Wednesday. Again, most places dry with plenty of sunshine, but temperatures won't be as high. We're still looking at very warm conditions, mid to high 20s across the south, low 20s further north. That's more typical for the time of year, but not quite as high, certainly in the south, as these current couple of days. That cold front is the reason why it pushes away the heat, but as high pressure builds back in, we could see the heat building once more during this weekend, particularly so across the south.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain every Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m. A news hour that comes with a trigger warning. Scorching hot opinion with prominent guests saying the unsayable and a little bit of weekend fun thrown in. Unlike other broadcasters, I won't be forgetting what the B in our name stands for. So howie in for Real Britain Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
Very welcome back. GB Views at gbnews.uk. Lots to get in touch about the Tory leadership race. Steve says, Darren, as a Conservative member, I hope we don't go from a Prime Minister who can talk to the public to one who can't even negotiate a filling station forecourt. Marianne says, Darren, Sajid has twice walked away from going when the going got tough to him. He cannot be relied upon. Rishi, the economy maybe be too remote from real life on everything else. Liz Truss does what she says, she delivers, and with the right team behind her, she could move the country forwards. Esme says, bring back Boris. I haven't heard of half of these new contenders. Rishi, definitely not. Who are they? Who is Christie when he's at home? Phil says, Sunak is seen by electors as a backstabbing snack, especially by Boris supporters. The Democratic vote of 2016 needs to be fully delivered, along with the 2019 manifesto. Terry says, what happens once the final two are chosen by MPs of the majority of the Conservative Party members? Scrub out both names and reinsert Boris. Food for thought. And someone else gets in touch saying, let's have Kemi Badenoch, proper Conservative values, come on, Kemi. Do get in touch, GBviews at gbnews.uk. We'll get a couple of more of those in before the end of the programme. But let's turn back to the race now, because lots of the candidates have got lots and lots of different views and policy positions, a wide range of wings from the party, pledging significant tax cuts, making the most of Brexit opportunities, restoring trust. But what do the polls say about who potentially could win this race? Let's speak to Joe Twyman. He's co-director of Delta Poll and joins us down the line. Joe, good afternoon, as always, to you. First of all, clearly the bookies' favourite, I think it's the public's view as well, that it is Rishi Sunak who is out in front. Is that right?
Well, it's the bookies' favourite today. A few days ago, Ben Wallace was the bookies' favourite. Penny Mordaunt's been popular as well. But historically, we know that it's very, very difficult to call these races when there isn't an obvious candidate to take over. And even when there is an obvious candidate to take over, history shows us that they rarely win. Boris Johnson was the exception that proved to the rule, but he was very unusual in that respect. This time around, we have a whole host of different candidates representing different wings of the party, from different backgrounds, with different experience. But what they all have in common is that very little is known among them, about them among the general public. When you look at someone like Rishi Sunak, yes, he was Chancellor for a long period, a relatively long period of time, but that time was dominated by the COVID pandemic and then the cost of living crisis. So he's not really known for very much. And a bit is known about his background. We know that he's very well off, and we know a bit about his wife's family's business, but relatively little. And he's the one that we know most about. The rest are really suspiciously quiet in the views of the general public. They are anonymous, and it's over the next few days and perhaps weeks that we will get to know more. But at the moment, the polling is simply a reflection of name recognition, and though it acts as a good baseline at the moment, could change dramatically during the course of the campaign.
I often wonder whether essentially being unknown is a benefit or whether it's a disadvantage in many regards, because in the end, if you are unknown, you get to build up a profile without little baggage.
That's true to some respects, but it depends if you have something that you perhaps wouldn't be like to be known for. If some of these candidates have skeletons in their closets, if they have even small news items that they prefer not to be dug up, then the fact that that comes out during a campaign can be damaging. Indeed, it could be to Rishi Sunak's benefit that some of the negative stories about his family and his finances have already come out. If that's all there is to come out, it actually potentially places him in quite a strong position, because we assume his opponents will have to deal with the kind of scrutiny on their private and public lives that they haven't had to put up with up until this point for many of them. And so that means that he may benefit from that. But of course, there are three separate constituencies in this election. Firstly, there's the Tory MPs, and we have estimates for who has publicly declared in that respect. But if Tory MPs were as honest as we would like to think, then perhaps we wouldn't be in this situation in the first place. So we have no guarantee that those declarations will necessarily hold. We also don't now know how those declarations will hold once some of the candidates have dropped out or have been removed from the race, and where their votes will go. It may be that a particular candidate has mopped up all the votes they can in their particular wing of the party, while others have many to get from those who have been eliminated. So there's that group. Then there's the question of Conservative Party members. Then there's the question, ultimately, of the general public. And those three constituencies are very different. And also, even within themselves, they're not just one uniform group. And Conservative Party members, for instance, have a whole host of different views, and the general public certainly do. And so how candidates answer big questions around the cost of living crisis, around taxation, around the Northern Ireland Protocol and Britain's relationship with the EU, around climate change. All of these are the kind of important questions that we really haven't heard much in the way of answers from yet. It's all very well saying, I'm going to cut taxes, but we need more meat on the bone if people are going to come to a firm decision one way or the other about whether someone sounds like they can be Prime Minister or not.
And just very finally and quickly, Joe, you and I have been around the block a little bit. It's not the first Conservative leadership race that we've seen. Probably the most open, though, in terms of, I was talking at the very start of the intro into you about the sheer scale and scope and depth of the candidates running, really are from right across the party.
Yes, you're right, Darren. Both you and I are suspiciously old. My first Conservative leadership election was in 2001 for Ian Duncan Smith, and that was a surprise. But I agree with your analysis. There has never been an election that is quite this wide open with such a wide range of candidates. It will be fascinating to see how those three constituencies that I've talked about respond.
Really appreciate your time and your analysis this afternoon. Thank you very much indeed today. Joe Twyman there. Join us down the line. OK, it's just after 3:30. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, we're going to be live for Sajid Javid's leadership launch. We're expecting that speech in just a couple of minutes. Of course, he resigned, just under a week ago, one of the first resignations last week that brought down Boris Johnson's premiership. You will not want to miss what he's got to say as he runs to be Conservative leader. But before all that, just after 3:30, let's bring you up to date with the very latest news and head back to Rosie Wright.
It's 3:32. I'm Rosie Wright. Let's get you up to date. Boris Johnson says he's determined to use his final few weeks to deliver the mandate he was elected on. Speaking in his first public appearance since resigning as Conservative Party leader, he refused to endorse any of the 11 candidates running to replace him. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss is the latest senior cabinet minister to add her name to the list. The Prime Minister says throwing his weight behind a candidate could damage their chances.
My job is really just to oversee the process for the next few weeks, and I'm sure that the outcome will be good. And we just need to get on. And as I said, I think before to you, the more we focus on the people, on the people who elect us, on their jobs, their hopes, what they can get out of investment in science and technology. The more we talk about the future that we're trying to build, the less we talk about politics at Westminster, the generally happier we will all be.
Keir Starmer's accused the candidates running to lead the Conservative Party of desperately trying to launder its integrity. In a speech this morning, the Labour leader said Britain's dealing with a crumbling economy and deserves better. He also hit out at what he called the hypocrisy of those who served in the Prime Minister's government, saying they supported tax hikes despite being opposed to them all along.
Well, what we've seen this weekend from all the Tory candidates who want to be leader of their party is £200 billion of unfunded spending commitments. And my challenge to them is say precisely where that money is coming from. Is it going to be cut? If so, what's going to be cut? Because we need to know. Is it going to be borrowing? If so, where are you borrowing from? How much are you borrowing? Or is it just the magic money tree?
A 15-year-old boy has been sentenced to a life sentence for the murder of schoolgirl Ava White. The teenager must serve a minimum of 13 years for the fatal stabbing of the 12-year-old in Liverpool last November. The defendant, who hasn't been named, claimed he accidentally stabbed Ava in self-defence, but a jury convicted him of murder following a 2-week trial. Ex-Formula One boss Bernie Ecclestone is to be charged with fraud by false representation. HMRC investigators say they believe they found more than £400 million worth of assets overseas that he failed to declare. The case will have its first hearing on the 22nd of August. And in some news just in, Conservative MP Jamie Wallis has been found guilty of failing to stop and failing to report a road traffic collision in South Wales last November. He was also found guilty of leaving a vehicle in a dangerous position after a crash. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.89 and 1.181 euros. The price of gold currently stands at £1,463.95 per ounce.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
Very welcome back to GB News. It is almost 24 minutes to 4 o'clock on this Monday. Monday feels like a Tuesday. Monday afternoon. We're on TV, online and on your wireless radio as well. We're just waiting for Sajid Javid, the former Health Secretary, the former Chancellor, who is due to launch his leadership campaign to take over the Conservative Party in the next couple of minutes. He's going to make a speech in central London outlining what he would do if he was to become Conservative leader, and obviously by defect also our Prime Minister. He was one of the Cabinet Ministers who resigned, the first one to resign last Tuesday evening, quickly followed by Rishi Sunak, and had a pretty devastating speech in the House of Commons just after PMQs last Wednesday. I think we can go over now to central London and listen to his launch speech. Sajid Javid going to set out his agenda for why MPs and ultimately why Tory party members should back him to be leader of the Conservative Party. Let's go over now and listen to Sajid Javid.
I spoke in the national interest. I stand here today in the same spirit, to say what I believe needs saying, and to bring it into focus what really is at stake. To make my case to the Conservative Party, its members and MPs, and to the country. And that case is not about me. I'm not here to polish my backstory. I think many people know it. I don't have a ready-made logo or a slick video ready to go. What I do have is a passionate desire to get Britain onto the right course and steer us through the gathering storm. You know, from Windrush to COVID-19, people have turned to me when times are tough. For all our strengths, our party has lost its way because those tough times are with us again today. Look at the polls. Look at the by-election results. Look at what people are telling their MPs. While families are limiting their weekly shop, politicians are getting caught up in arguments over who knew the latest sleaze allegations and when. And this isn't just bad for the country. It's catastrophic for all the Conservatives. Because when we lose our integrity, we lose the trust of the British people. We need a leader who makes credible promises, brings people together, and makes tough decisions in the national interest. You see, I served in government, and whenever I was given a job, I don't just get on with it, I grip that job. And over the last year, I've put all my energy into seeing us out of this pandemic, giving us back our freedoms from lockdowns and reforming our health and care sector for the long term. You know, if I stop to think about it, it's been the proudest year of my career. The lives that have been impacted, the freedoms that have been secured. I served in the national interest until I no longer had confidence in the Prime Minister. I didn't say one thing and then go and do another. And when I reached that sad conclusion, I told him so. And I did something about it. This wasn't because I could hear the hooves of a herd, and if anything, I expected half of the herd to turn around and charge at me. I left the cabinet because it was the right thing to do, both for the party and for the country. And the case I want to make today, ultimately, it isn't about me. I'm not going to talk about being the son of a bus driver, proud though I am of my dad. I'm not. I am proud, but I am proud of my dad, I will say that. Or I'm not even going to claim that I'm the only person to take this country forward. I'm the only person that's capable of that. I'm not going to claim that. It's about us, you see. It's about the people we serve and the values we stand by. It's about decency, personal responsibility, and social justice. These are all the central ideals of what it is to be Conservative. The Conservative mission to extend freedom, prosperity, and opportunity is at risk if we cannot uphold this ideal. And what's true of the public is also true of our party. From ordinary members to cabinet members, Conservatives will not unite around someone that they cannot trust. Because ultimately, that's what leadership is about. Levelling with people, leading them towards clear objectives, and setting an example. Matrons on wards know this. Platoon commanders know this. Faith leaders know this. But somewhere along the way in Westminster, we've lost sight of that calling, the sense of a higher purpose and national interest. And it's the responsibility of all of us in public life, whoever we are, to restore that. So I'm here with a blunt message about our party and our country. Because we don't just have time to obsess about the parlour games of SW1. We need to face outwards, not inwards. And over the coming days, we'll see all the other candidates come forward. They'll come forward and they'll rightly, all of them will make their case. But my advice, my plea is this. For months, the public have been watching developments in Downing Street and behaviours, and they've been dismayed. They are watching how we conduct ourselves now too, at this time of crisis at home and abroad. And they need to see that we are focusing together, we are focusing on the issues that really matter. Somewhere along the way, Conservatives, I think they've got so used to being the natural party of government that we've lost the core skills and values that earned us that title in the first place. We know Labour usually do well in polling questions like caring about ordinary people like me. They talk a good game on that. People often think they have a soft heart but lack the hard-headed competence. But we Conservatives, we have to get much better at reclaiming and explaining our moral purpose. But it's not just that. Over the last couple of years, our reputation on most values and policies has slidden away. Too many people now believe that Labour are fit to govern. Some of them say that Labour are more competent and even more likely to cut taxes. Now, we know this isn't because they are putting their faith in Labour itself. The truth is, they've lost faith in us. And for those of us who have been around long enough, you know, it's starting to feel very familiar. This weekend, my wife Laura and I, are celebrating our silver wedding anniversary. If we can find the time. I'm sure we will. Now, I was thinking back 25 years ago, thinking about you, Laura, and other stuff, but I was also thinking about how, at the time when we were preparing to get married, what was going on in politics then, 25 years ago. The Conservative Party was defeated in the biggest electoral landslide since the Second World War. The British public sent us into the wilderness, and there we were for spending a further 13 years. The way things are going recently, I feared that our party was on a trajectory to the same electoral oblivion once again. It didn't have to be like this. Just 3 years ago, we won the biggest Conservative majority since Margaret Thatcher. And just over a year ago, we got Brexit done. Neither would have happened without Boris Johnson, and his effectiveness and love for the country is undeniable. But we cannot be complacent about the situation that we are now in. This is a wake up and smell the coffee moment. Sleaze, scandal, internal warfare. We've seen this movie before and we know how it ends. So it won't be enough to just have someone else, anyone else at the helm. With the country in an economic crisis, and Europe facing a war with no clear end in sight, the British people are looking for competence in their leaders. And if they can't find it in our party, they'll tell us, using the most powerful language in any democracy, the vote. Let's not forget that the next election, it won't be about Jeremy Corbyn or getting Brexit done. The next election, it will be about what the Conservatives have to offer for the next 4 or 5 years. And that's what this moment, this leadership election, that's why it is a turning point. I have every hope that this campaign can and will be the turning point that we need. Just look at the people that are coming forward already and the abundance of ideas that they have. You know, we Conservatives, we don't believe in identity politics, but it can be a real source of pride that we have more candidates from ethnic minority backgrounds running to be leader of our party today than have ever run to be leader of the Labour Party. Many of them with inspiring backstories about what this country means to them. And you would struggle to find any major party in a comparable country that can boast such diversity. We truly are the most successful multiracial democracy in the world. And while we have an impressive field, there's very little time for the public to get to know the candidates to be their next Prime Minister. And polling suggests there are only 2 candidates that are both already known to them and regarded as good potential Prime Ministers. People want to see who is ready to take on these crises at home and abroad, as well as the next election campaign, of course. So it's right that people and ideas are tested and forged in the fire of the contest. And I fully support, by the way, having TV debates to help with that. So yes to scrutiny in the short time that we have. But let's also come out of this in one piece, as one team. I won't call for one of those gimmicky, clean campaign pledge cards, but I am calling on the best instincts of those that are putting themselves forward to show what's needed. Times of change and crisis tend to bring out the best in people, but sometimes also the worst. And I'm sorry to say that, looking at some of the stories from the weekend press, it hasn't been a good start. Poisonous gossip and attack memos and allegations being thrown around. You know, some people say you have to play the game. And I refuse to accept that. This isn't the House of Cards or the Game of Thrones. And the people who are here, just because they enjoy the game, they're in the wrong place. This is a time for pulling together, not apart. This contest is already showing that we do have talents, and they're already coming through. And I have the confidence to bring that talent to the top table. Great PMs, like all great bosses, they surround themselves with people that are smarter than them and people who can challenge their thinking. No one is the full package. I know I'm not. But if we can get back to seeing this job as the first among equals, we can transition from a team of rivals to an unrivaled team. That's the only way that we can win the next election, our 5th in a row. We have to avoid the entrenched tribalism that we see in the Labour Party. And we have to unite our best people and our best ideas to focus on the issues that matter. Because actually, I think after the last several years, the public want to see less personalities and politics and more good government and just plain old getting on with the job. We won't be rewarded at the next election for the things that we have done, whether that's the rollout of booster vaccines or the boost in jobs right across the country. We will be judged on what we will do about the great challenges of our time, whether that's finding ways to ease the cost of living or confronting the invasion of a European nation by a brutal dictator. I'm happy to take questions after this on any policy, any government policy area, and I'll be setting out more detail on my agenda in the coming days. And when I think about the challenges that we face, I'm especially concerned about growing divisions in our society and how it's harder than ever before for people to just get by and to get ahead. So today, I'm launching my new Conservative economic plan. Can I have a copy there, please? Thank you. Let me show you. My new Conservative economic plan. It's in your hands in this room. It's being published online right now. And while I did say this speech, this campaign is not about me, there's a big picture of me on the front. But seriously, this is a substantive document. This is the kind of content candidates should be focusing on. Because if we can't grow our economy, we can't get a hearing on any other issue. It really is as simple as that. Improving our productivity is the most important issue of our times. We cannot improve living standards. We cannot fund our public services. And we cannot provide security without it. And there is no social mobility, no social justice without productivity growth. It just can't happen. It's as simple as that. I've always believed in free enterprise and low taxes and sensible regulation as the necessary conditions for growth and levelling up right across the country. You know, some say that you can't have tax cuts until you have growth. But I say no. It's the other way around. We need tax cuts to kickstart growth. But of course, I'm not saying that tax cuts alone are enough. A new Conservative economic plan must also drive the infrastructure revolution that we started in 2019, from bus networks to new nuclear power. A new Conservative economic plan must have skills and social mobility at its heart. We must show the same radicalism to reform, further education, adult education, childcare and early years that we've had for academies and free schools 12 years ago. We must build more houses. Let me say again, you heard it right. We must build more houses. Beautiful new garden villages and new towns with community support. The vaccine task force, that also showed us that what's possible with the COVID vaccine, and we can now apply those same lessons using that task force approach to cancer and dementia and mental health. The effects on our growth and our health will be transformative. A new radical approach to devolution, regulation and competition will drive growth too. This is a bold, credible plan. I also know that charting this course, of course, is not without risk. I accept that. But the greater risk is not cutting taxes now and getting stuck in a low growth trap.
There you go. That is Sajid Javid setting out his position of why he wants to be the next Conservative leader, talking about how the party's lost its way, but also that, frankly, he wants to get away from gimmicky policies, he says, that it's time to pull together, and that the leadership contest so far has been plagued, he says, by poisonous gossip, attack memos and allegations being thrown around, but clearly also setting out why he wants to cut taxes now. He is one of 11 candidates standing to be the next Conservative leader thus far. We could have a couple of more before the end of play tomorrow. Let's bring in Colin Brazier. He is in the studio because he's on air in just a couple of minutes' time and joins me now. A little bit of a sweaty Sajid Javid there. It is very, very hot in London today.
You know, somebody should have handed that economic plan right at the beginning. He could have wafted himself as with a fan. It's a reminder, Darren, isn't it? By the way, I think we should still be on Sajid Javid. It was a really interesting speech.
It was.
Rather than listening to me and telling you what's coming up in my show. But, you know, it's on the hoof, isn't it? I mean, the setup there, it's on the hoof. Nobody has thought, you know, really hot day, air conditioning, shall we?
It is a reminder that actually, for lots of candidates, I think he alluded to this, you know, there's no slick videos here, i.e. I'm running for this and I've only decided to do it in the last couple of days.
You're enjoying this enormously. You're a political editor. But I have to say, I'm just finding the unvarnished nature of people speaking candidly. What he just said there in terms about, what was it? That we want to return to primus inter pares. We want to return to cabinet government.
I mean, you know, that's not a very sly dig at Boris Johnson. That's a swipe across the chops, isn't it?
Cool. And you'll be talking lots about this between 4 and
Rod Liddle and Kelvin Mackenzie amongst my guests today.
We'll be tuning in just a couple of minutes. I have to say, as hot as it is in London today, you will not believe this. Parliament is currently not sitting because of a leak in the roof of the Commons, which means that MPs are not in the chamber. That's it from me for today. Continue coverage of the leadership race throughout this afternoon here on GB News. And back tomorrow at 3. And we'll leave you with that weather. And if it's hot today, my word, it's only going to get hotter as the week goes on. See you soon.
Alex Deacon here with your latest weather updates. Hot and sunny to start the week. Temperatures won't be as high through the middle of the week. However, there is the potential for temperatures to rise even further come the weekend. High pressure is dominating at the moment. It's bringing plenty of sunshine today, but this weather front is going to bring a change for some of us in the next 24 hours. Certainly the cloud increasing across northwest Scotland, a bit of rain edging in here through the evening and the breeze picking up. For most, it is a very warm